Let's go over here. All right, what's up, guys? What's up, you sinners and saints, you heathens and demons? What a wild ride last night, wasn't it? Pretty wild stream. It's been a while since we've had a stream like that. Um, and I wanted to own some mistakes, not just from the stream last night, but just overall. It shouldn't really matter who makes criticisms of you. If they're legitimate criticisms, you should look at them. And if you're wrong, I highly believe that you should admit that you're wrong. As my phone just goes off crazy. Want to say what's up to the chat. We got Critical Cripple, Rational Canadian Atheist, Jeremy Pace. This isn't going to be very long. Skylar's about to start streaming. I have to be to work at 3. So I'm going to throw him on and get ready for work. But I do want to own some mistakes. And please be quiet, phone. Let me turn my phone off. Starting with MMA Jenkins. So I doubled down recently saying I wouldn't apologize to MMA based upon Smokey Saints criticisms, bringing Matt Powell into it. But I wanted to address it in the fact that I had pretty much already apologized to MMA for my earlier videos, but I wanted to go ahead and go public again right now. I know that Emma does still watch my videos. I know that her family does still watch my videos. I know that my earlier videos really affected MMA. And it is quite possible that she took a hiatus from YouTube due to some of my earlier videos. I've been told by some of her family members that those earlier videos did really affect her in a negative way. And I wanted to apologize for that. I think that in my earlier days, when I first made this channel, I was going through that really, really angry anti-theist phase still. I think most atheists probably go through that earlier than I did. But as I've talked about, and you guys can see my daughter's right behind me. She's wearing her headphones. Shouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying. So can you hear me? All right. Shouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying. I think we all go through that phase, right? And I think that phase was later for me because I was in the closet as an atheist for so long. I've spoke about it often that I was in the closet for a good 10 years at least, probably more like 12 or 13 years. And when I came out of that closet, that's when my family shut me down and I was shunned by a lot of my family members. So when I started this channel, there was a lot of rage. That's why I named myself The Raging Atheist. And my earlier videos were very incendiary. I was walking that edgelord line, trying to mold myself after Cult of Dusty and TJ Kirk and people like that. Just really trying to get the anger that I had out. And some of those earlier videos, I attacked the person and not the ideas. And it wasn't just MMA, it was Coffee and Bible Time as well. And I totally just stopped doing Coffee and Bible Time videos because I was wrong. I shouldn't have said the things that I said, attacking the individuals instead of the ideas that they were promoting. And, so if you are watching Emma, it is a heartfelt apology. I mean every word of it. I doubled down because Matt Powell got involved. But those earlier videos were wrong. And I was wrong for saying some of the things that I said. And I should own up to that. And I shouldn't run away from that. I think I recognized very early. Yeah, last night was crazy. I'm getting a lot of notifications, and I appreciate all your guys' comments and support. Yeah, so hopefully that doesn't happen too much. But I think that you should own up when you're wrong. And I think that if you grow as a person, then you should be able to recognize your shortcomings in the past. And I've always tried to do that. And I don't want to make exceptions just because Matt Powell says a thing. Just because Matt Powell says a thing doesn't mean he's automatically wrong for that particular thing he's saying, although it's ridiculous that he would come at me like that. It's not wrong just because me and Smokey are having a current beef that I don't accept some of Smokey's legitimate criticisms of myself. And that's something that I've been, planning on doing for a while, ever since the Smokey Saint shit started. I was planning on having fun with them, but I usually look at legitimate criticisms of myself. And if I see where I'm wrong, I will try to address that. So that's what I'm doing today. With MMA, I was wrong. And I apologize humbly. If you were watching MMA, I hope you accept that apology. I hope it gives you some peace. This does not mean that I will stop making MMA Jenkins videos, but it does mean that I will attack the ideas and not the person. And as I've said in several videos, I actually find MMA's character, her personality, to be quite refreshing. I know a lot of people have fun with her voice and with her quirky attitude. I have had fun with her voice and her quirky attitude. But overall, if you take away the things that I dislike, or even if you keep the things that I dislike about her, I think the things that I like about her kind of override a lot of those things. But I will continue to keep speaking about indoctrination, her indoctrination. I will continue to keep speaking about the youth movement she leads. But at the same time, you should attack the ideas, not the person. And in those earlier videos, I definitely attacked the person. I was wrong for that. There's been several times when I felt like maybe I should delete those old videos, and I ultimately decided not to, because I think it's important to show growth. I think it's important to show both Christians and new atheists that anger is usually short-lived. It's usually a phase that you come out of. And that's why I kept those videos. So moving on, last night, I made a comment about basically that women could be married off at 12 years and 1 day. And Scott challenged me on that and asked me for citation. And I went to the article that I thought I had got that out of, and I couldn't find it in the middle of the stream. Well, this morning I went to that same article and I read every single word, and I couldn't find it in the article that I thought it was in. I'm like, where did I get that information? So I'm looking, and usually if I'm doing research, especially when it comes to the Bible, the place I start is Wikipedia. So let's throw this up. Add to stream. Now, I understand you guys might not be able to read this. It probably would have been better if I had used OBS, but OBS, I wanted to make this quick, and OBS is still set up for my green screen. So hopefully you guys can read it. I usually don't use information I get from Wikipedia. I usually only use Wikipedia as a base source to get sources. And when I'm researching ancient Israel, this is one of the places I go to get sources. If you want to find certain Bible passages that is reflecting what you're trying to talk about, this is a great resource. But I usually don't use this as actual information that I would use in a conversation or a debate. But this is where I got the 12 years and a day thing. And I was wrong that it was 12 years and a day was like the age of consent. Here's what it said, and here's what I read. So I'm going to highlight it right here. Hopefully you guys can read it. It says, an Israelite father could sell his unmarried daughters into servitude with the expectation or understanding that the master or his son could eventually marry her, as in Exodus 21:7-11. It is understood by Jewish and Christian commentators that this referred to the sale of a daughter who is not arrived to the age of 12 years and a day, and this through poverty. So that's where I got that. And I was obviously wrong about the context in which I used it. Now, age of consent in ancient Israel appears to have been when a woman has her first menstrual cycle, when she reaches puberty, usually around 12 to 13 years old. So it's still basically the same, but the 12-year and a day thing is about sexual slavery, selling a daughter into that sexual slavery. She could be sold at 12 years and a day, but that doesn't mean that they would be married until they couldn't be married until she had her first menstrual cycle. So I was wrong about that, and I like to own when I was wrong. Scott was in the right for calling me out about where did I get that 12 years and a day thing. He had heard that it was menstruation, and he also said that a lot of times people would wait to consummate the marriage for a couple to several years. Now, I don't really find that in my research. I'm not sure where he's getting that from. And hopefully when we have our conversation about ancient Israel, he'll expand on that for me. because from what I'm seeing, reproduction was the most important factor of a marriage. And so if you're being married off as a 12-year-old girl who has had her first menstrual cycle, then I think that the odds were overwhelmingly that marriage would be consummated once that first menstrual cycle was over. So it's still basically the same thing. It's still the same argument. There was a systemic pedophilia within ancient Israel, what we would consider pedophilia today, looking through our modern lens. Now, context is important. That's something that I didn't use last night, and it's something that I usually won't use in debates about the ancient Israel culture, because despite the context, I still find the culture to be abhorrent and to be immoral, and we've come a long way since then. So the context is that ancient Israel was a lot more progressive than the nations around them. Being married off at 12 was a common practice throughout all of the known world then. Ancient Rome did it. All of those nations in that area of the world pretty much did the same thing. I've read where in ancient Israel, if a woman were to have sex before the age of 3, well, she would still retain her status as being a virgin. But if a woman were to have sex after the age of 3, she would no longer retain that status. And we're talking about rape in these instances. We're talking about, horrible things done to children. And this is the thing about that culture that I just can't respect. But if I'm wrong about a thing, I try to admit that thing. And so when I said the 12 years and a day thing, I was wrong, but the age of consent was puberty. And most oftentimes that would have been 12 or 13. And if you put that into the context of the modern world, women are having their first menstrual cycle earlier due to a lot of factors, hormones in the food, shit like that. Women are sometimes having their first menstrual cycle at 9 or 10 years old. So by that ancient law, 9 or 10-year-old girls would be married off. So I find this very abhorrent. I find this to be a part of the Israeli culture that should not be respected, with a lot of things: slavery, genocide, the sexual slavery. There's a lot of things about the ancient culture of Israel that I don't think should be respected or held up to some high standard, because there wasn't a high standard. And this shows the progression of the world. And I really wanted to own that. I don't like to be wrong. And I'm thankful that Scott pointed that out. But I also think that the Christians should really think about defending that shit. You can only look through your modern lens. And while it was accepted practice at the time, we can look back at that time, especially a people that supposedly governed by an all-powerful, all-knowing God, and expect more from them, I believe. Maybe I'm off on that. But I think that if this is the standard, if this is God's people, if this was God's law, then you have to look at it based upon the morality that you have today. I think that selling off 12 to 13-year-old girls into marriage is it is immoral and it is wrong. But I was wrong about the 12 years and a day thing. That wasn't being married at 12 years and a day. That was simply for slavery, or for the sexual slavery, selling a daughter into sexual slavery. You could do that when she was 12 years and a day. I think that you could not do it in the year of the Jubilee or something like that. I can't remember what I read, but there was a certain year where you would probably marry her off either early or late, or sell her off early or late. And it also does appear, from what I've read this morning, that this was a fairly short-lived practice in ancient Israel. That for a period of time you could buy a wife, but then it went to more of a dowry system, that you weren't buying a wife, you were simply paying a dowry to that woman's family. So context matters, being truthful matters, admitting when you're wrong matters. And I was wrong in that one regard last night. Now, last night was it was crazy. I think that I kept my cool through most of it. I thought it was funny through most of it, but I think that we did somewhat find resolution near the end. And then other stuff happened after that, and I'm not really going to talk about that right now. But I feel like that there was some resolution found last night, despite the dumpster fire that was. And I really think that it's important to recognize that Smokey Saint, despite the back and forth trolling that's been on both sides, the name calling that's been on both sides, you guys know, I will roll around in the mud with you. If you're gonna call me names, I'll call you names back. I don't have some fucking high standard of how I'm gonna treat you. I'm gonna treat you pretty much how you treat me, but you should still recognize legitimate criticisms, even from people you're in a heated back and forth with, like Smokey Saint. And one of those criticisms that I have of myself is making incendiary comments like, well, the writers of the Bible are sheep fuckers. And I should not just dismiss that Smokey or any Christian would get triggered or angry over statements like that. And I should recognize and admit that those statements just aren't fucking good statements to make. The whole purpose here is to normalize atheism, to show the good and the bad, to show the humanity, to show the right and the wrong. And I'm not helping that cause if I'm making incendiary comments like, why do you follow a bunch of sheep fuckers? So Smokey's not wrong for that. Now, I think that he was wrong for labeling me an anti-Semite for that. And those are issues that we'll have to work out. But he's not wrong for calling me out for making comments like that. And he did finally show a little bit of receipts that I saw. It doesn't show me saying that all Jews are sheep fuckers, but I did probably get a little heated in a trolling battle in his chat and made that comment. And I should own up to that that's not a comment that I should be making. And that's the type of thing that I've really tried to change about myself since the early days of this channel, when I was really, really deeply anti-theist, like a toxic anti-theist. I don't think all anti-theists are toxic. I think anti-theism is a legitimate philosophy to have, but my anti-theism was toxic, and I've tried to get that rhetoric out of my vocabulary. And for some reason that night, the trolling back and forth with his chat, that came out of me. And so, Smokey finally showed that receipt, and I need to own that, because that is something that I've tried to get out of my rhetoric. And for some reason that night I didn't. And I was wrong for saying that. I have no evidence that they were a bunch of sheep fuckers. Obviously, it's in reference to my disdain of the culture, but I can say that better. And you shouldn't just run away from criticisms because it's, I'm in a beef with Smokey and he said a thing. I shouldn't just accept it because it's Smokey, or I shouldn't just accept it because it's Matt Powell or whoever I'm arguing with, if it's John Maddox last night, who is going to say that there's some kind of scientific evidence for a soul when there isn't. Just because he says a thing that I disagree with doesn't mean that any legitimate criticisms that he has of myself shouldn't be considered and taken seriously. And I think you guys know that about me, that I am more than willing to call myself out when I'm wrong. And in these instances, I was wrong. That doesn't excuse a lot of the name calling. It doesn't excuse a lot of the things, but I think that it does show a level of responsibility. That I should take better care of the rhetoric that's coming out, especially when I'm live, and especially when I'm dealing in a live conversation with a Christian or anybody in any religion. There should be an element of respect that I need to work on that, and I'm going to. And I think that I have. I think I've come a long way. Again, with the whole Smokey Saint thing, I didn't ask for it. I didn't start it. But at the same time, I shouldn't just ignore legitimate criticisms. I shouldn't double down on not apologizing to MMA if I feel like there is an apology that is deserving. Bless you. So there I go with some innate Christianity. But so yeah, just a quick stream. I wanted to recognize that I've got to get ready for work. And I wanted to tell you guys, if you guys ever think that I'm wrong about something, please feel free to let me know. Any legitimate criticisms are going to be taken seriously. Now, if I feel like you're just trolling, I'm probably going to troll you back. But if it's a legitimate criticism from anybody, whether you be Christian, Muslim, atheist, agnostic, deist, whatever you are, if it's a legitimate criticism, I'm going to look at it. And if I can come to an agreement that I should recognize that, I'm going to. That's called being a man. And you should own up to your mistakes. And I think that of the shit show that was last night, you know, that 12 years and a day thing, it came out in the heat of it all. Just 1 second, guys. This looks like the hospital's calling. All right, guys. So that they hung up. They hung up. All right, fuck them. I don't know what that was about. It seemed like maybe something I should take, but they hung up. So fuck them. But yeah. So I don't know. I wanted to own those mistakes. And again, that doesn't mean I stopped making MMA Jenkins videos. But it does mean that I should be more conscious of attacking ideas and not the people. And I think that I do that now. Back then I didn't. So if Christians are going to get triggered by watching those videos, that's legitimate. And I've admitted that in the past. So yeah, I'm going to get out of here. Yeah, hi, Knox Daughter. Hi, what's up, Ronan? Iron, I saw Drag in the chat. Kent Hovind, CPA. Just a really quick, you know, if I'm wrong, I try to admit when I'm wrong. This Sunday, I will be having a conversation, I do believe, with CJ Cox about some of my criticisms of his debate performance with Smokey Saint. And then we're going to be setting up with Scott Paith a conversation between me and him about ancient Israel. And he can tell me on more of the things that maybe I'm wrong about and maybe I should take into more context. And if I'm going to be talking about the ancient culture of Israel and how I find it immoral, I want to have all the information I can. And I think that he's a smart, honest interlocutor that will be honest with me. And I think that will be a great conversation. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. So yeah, so I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys for joining me for this really, really, really quick stream. And you know, this is something that I'm always going to do. If I know that I'm wrong about something, or if I feel that I'm wrong about something, if I feel like I need to address something, I'm always going to do that, and I'm going to do it publicly because I'm usually making these statements public. And I think that that's the thing to do as a grown ass adult, whether you're man or woman. You should be looking and willing to see the mistakes that you made. And I'm always willing to do that. So I want to thank you guys. Y'all have a great day.